Yes, the Epic Game Store. While it's not the greatest game service out there, the free games each week are quite tantalizing. Well, not all of them. Just based on quantity alone, there will be quite a few misses in between each hit. And not every game has a successful or popular launch, nor have the same scale of gameplay. But they're free, so who's to complain? Especially considering the collection I've amassed so far has now reached over 600 games. So considering the sheer quantity, there's no way I'd get through these all on my own. But when something's given away for free, it can just as easily be taken away. So I'd like to check these games out sooner than later. So why not turn it into a semi-regular series? Maybe call it the Epic Games Slop Corner. Now I'm not going to confirm any sort of game order or schedule, as I'll have to experiment with the series, seeing how I should tackle different kinds of games, and likely tweak my own recording settings. But with that said, out of this entire collection, let's start with a game called TerraTech. This time on Epic Games Slop Corner, we're covering the game TerraTech. As you can see by the main menu in the background, this is a vehicle builder slash vehicle fighter game. And while I had started a campaign previously, this time we're going to be starting a new one. We're not specifying a seed, and we're going to play the tutorial. Our campaign starts where our missile crash lands. While we start with just our cab, the tutorial will give us some blocks and wheels to build our first tech. In addition to some starter weapons, of course. Once we finish building, we can then hit B to exit our build mode. We then drive around with WASD and can fire our weapons with spacebar, which is all we need to know to begin combat in TerraTech. While destroying the enemy tech is obviously the goal, what we want to focus on is hitting the core, aka the cab, because any blocks remaining after their cab destroyed, we can use for our own volition. But for being the first fight of the campaign, it's not that impressive. Right now we just want to avoid damage with so few blocks. And we survived our first combat. That XP gained goes to our licenses at the top left of the screen, while any blocks remaining can be attached to our current vehicle. It ain't pretty, but it'll have to do. As the tutorial continues, we'll find that there's a few other blocks that we need to unlock. The first being the solar generator. We get into a little scuffle and add a few new parts, but we finally arrive. Now, solar generators are a bit unique because they're one of our first base blocks, meaning that they can be placed and anchored onto the ground. While not very useful on its own, it's powerful when paired up with other blocks, such as this repair bubble, which when attached to a solar generator or any base with a solar generator on it, will project a repair bubble that when your vehicle or blocks are inside, will repair over time. And once we finish repairing, we can attach these blocks to our machine and go. If the solar generator on your vehicle has access to the ground, you can hit V to anchor yourself, which will provide the same effect as if you made the solar generator as its own base. With extra weapons, the fighting goes a bit smoother. And with the anchor tech, it's easy enough to heal up after each fight. But we now have our next destination in sight. What's supposed to be our radar is apparently being stolen by another vehicle. And we gotta make sure to not damage the radar. But with a radar, once we attach it to our vehicle, it will change how our minimap at the bottom right looks and tell us where nearby enemies are, along with our coordinates in the open world. But now that we have our radar, we'll take our spoils and go to our next objective, the battery. Our tech is starting to get a bit bulky, but if we leave any objects behind right now, they'll despawn. So while it makes our vehicle look bad, we're going to keep all this extra stuff on us until we unlock our inventory. But if it's just sitting there, I mean, we might as well bring it along. So we're finally coming up to the battery. But since it's stuck in a tree, this lets us know that there are objects in the world that we can break. This tree only dropped the battery, but later on we'll get into the nodes that drop resources. But now that we have a battery on our tech, it lets us use powered blocks like the repair sphere on the move. We can even repair in the middle of combat. Of course, the bubble will disappear if we run out of power, and the damage we receive can outpace the healing that we do. First melee kill. Nice. But being able to repair on the go lets us be a bit riskier with our driving. Though now that we've had a few battles under our belt, our spoils, particularly our wheels, are starting to hold us back. Too many wheels starts reducing our turning radius, which makes the smaller enemy techs that much of a bigger threat. But we finally come upon the crash site. Upon completing quests, we'll often be sent delivery crates, which give a randomized block reward. This one's giving us some more basic blocks, but we also get some upgraded wheels by the looks of it, and an extra solar generator. So it looks like we're going to have to revise our tech a little bit. No, I'm not ready! I need to fight this guy away from the blocks that are still on the ground so they don't get damaged or destroyed. Oh, and I think that's the battery on the front. I don't know if I'll be able to salvage it. And it's gone. Back to building, I suppose. It's getting a bit long, so I took out the middle wheels, and that seems to have helped its turning radius. Though in hindsight, my cab's still pretty exposed at the front, and if I move it now, I'd have to rebuild the whole thing. So I guess we'll put off the full redesign until later. Moving on to the final stage of the tutorial, we need to find a GSO trading station, and we're coming upon one now. These will be our main source of progression, allowing us to buy blocks, sell resources, and accept quests. But it looks like we got a surprise enemy before we can access the trader. This is a turret or stationary tech. Think similar to the solar generator where it's anchored on the ground, but it can still rotate and aim at you. So all we need to do is get some distance, and with our lasers see if we can outrange him. And I think we can block his lasers with the hill, as all ranged weapons targets an enemy's mass and not specific blocks. The mass shifts depending on what blocks are still attached to the cab, so if we want to lessen the amount of blocks that we destroy, we'll try and pick away at the tech to target the cab. And there shouldn't be much attached to the cab now. It seems for this turret that we have to destroy the anchor. But now we are license grade 2. This gives us more blocks to purchase at a trader, and enemy techs will start appearing with them too. Though once again, we now have more rewards to stack into our tech. It's definitely starting to get wide, and it's just going to get busier because for our next quest we're going to need to purchase some collectors. These will pick up resources off the ground and let us carry them with our tech. Now that we have a collector, let's go over to some resource nodes. Any weapon can break these nodes into their resources, and the amount of resources that each node type drops should be the same. There will be a port on one side of the trader that allows you to drop off your resources, in which the money you make here is added to your total at the bottom of the screen. And while I do want to purchase some blocks, I think we look at the quests first. To start out, we have 3, and we can technically accept them all at the same time. This first quest opens up the Geocorp mining tech license, which is a new array of blocks, weapons, and the like. The second quest and other crafty business quests are for unlocking base building blocks, bringing more functionality to your player-built bases. which, while they're good to do, we don't have a way to store these base building blocks and would have to keep them on our vehicle the whole time. This third quest, while letting us build our own turret, secretly unlocks our storage functionality, and it will be our top priority. And looking at our map, it should be nearby. Side note, discovering traders opens up sections of the map. While it doesn't show exact landmarks, it does keep track of biomes, which lets us know what sort of terrain we might be getting into. As we move forward, you'll see that this next enemy has some new blocks on his vehicle. The enemy designs are also getting bigger, and at this stage it's still ideal to try and dodge as much damage as we can, but with the plow that we picked up, our front's a little bit stronger. Looking a bit closer, we can see the enemy was primarily using these double stack blocks. Though for now, we'll just add them to the pile and move on. Our quest seems to take us to the sand dunes, which is a problem with how long our vehicle is. While that's something we'll have to rectify later, what we can do now is enter build mode to move ourselves to a better position. Getting closer to the quest location, we can see that there are a few enemies about. In fact, there's one enemy tech that's charging straight for the trading station, and we got credit for its death. As we sneak closer, we can see a friendly turret being attacked by two enemy turrets. With that other turret as the target, we may as well do as much damage as we can. Quite riveting gameplay if I do say so myself. I promise it'll get better later. But they're not looking damaged enough to move in. Oh, he finished it off. By killing these enemies, the turret is now given over to our control. By holding right click on the turret, we can then currently set it to wait or guard mode, which will attack any enemies that get close enough. Good timing too. With how long we are and having our small wheels, our tech's having a hard time going up hills. In fact, we've bottomed out in this valley. Well, I'm glad the turret's putting in all the work. With no help from me, this turret has now saved this trading station, opening up our map. After some floaty repositioning, we can now see this black hole on the side of the trader. Moving blocks on the ground into its range will cause them to be sucked up into our personal build menu, which now appears whenever we go into build mode. And we can pull items out of it whenever we see fit. So that means it's time for a true and proper redesign. And while the black hole can only grab so many blocks at once, they will keep adding all the blocks that are in range. But enough stalling, it's time to get to it. Something I did near the end of designing was send the turret to storage. As opposed to dismantling the turret piece by piece, using the right-click command lets me send the entire thing at once. But now that we have this outfitted K-truck looking thing, it's now time to save it and give it a name, which can be done by clicking the Take Snapshot button in the bottom left. And because it's our starter vehicle that we may want to reload later on, we'll call it the Ugly Duck, which we can reload by clicking the Load Tech button next to the Snapshot button. It's actually got some of my save machines from a different file, so we may have to check those out at a different time. For proof of concept, if we were to select Swap Current Tech, since we have all the pieces in our inventory, it will simply reform. If we are missing pieces, we wouldn't be able to reform it. If we have extra pieces on, they'll be removed and sent to the inventory, and will be given back our basic design. So with our new tech in tow, let's check out some quests. It might be time to unlock that new license. But since we have the storage, I might as well grab the crafty business one as well. Meaning it's time to head out. And it's heavy again. Time for a combat test. The The plus side of the taller wheels is that we can angle over hills better, but we still need a direct line of fire. Though the enemy seems to have a weapon that can reach us, which makes it nice that we have this blue shield bubble, absorbing a certain amount of damage before it breaks. You can see I also have some regular machine guns facing upward, but they are providing the indirect fire I thought they would. After taking these blocks, we'll move on. Not that we made it that far. Now I didn't realize until later, if I reformed my tech right now, I wouldn't have to deal with how long it is from the extra blocks, because my turning radius is quite diminished right now, so I tried to keep guns forward while retreating backward. Intended. And lucky for me, a second enemy came in, grabbing each other's attention, to the point that they forgot I was even involved, which gave me some time for reconfiguring. These guns pointed vertically were useless, and while they won't see much use at the back, at least they'll aim at something now. But these newly added mortars completely refused to fire, so I tried moving them to the top row. And now they fire, so it seems weapons that are meant to be indirect fire still require line of sight, at least in this configuration. But with how inaccurate the motors are, I let the lasers finish the job. After finally making it to our quest destination, we are greeted by Big Pete. So since Geocorp Mining is a mining company, we're expected to deliver resources to Big Pete. Though on going to retrieve said resources, we get attacked by a newly landed enemy tech. And while he seems plenty small, we get a couple of issues. With the first being, we just ran out of power, and our tires are not giving us the mobility that we need. However, remember those guns that we just happened to place on the back? They were surprisingly effective as a backup weapon. I'll have to keep them around. We finally deliver the last of the resources, and fend off another foe. And while the enemy wasn't that big a deal, this next reward is a big deal. While we get an assortment of bigger blocks and melee weapons, what we truly want are bigger wheels. Adding just a singular wheel already increases our mobility. For the rest of the blocks, we'll just throw them on until we get to a trading station. After a little dump and go, on proceeding to the next quest, I noticed a new tech design. With the Geocore license unlocked, enemies will now spawn using those Geocore blocks. We lucked out with this tech being top heavy in the dunes. The stronger licenses we have means the stronger the enemies will get. But that does mean we can get these parts for free, especially if we play our cards right. Now that we have 6 of these mega wheels, these dunes are a breeze, and it might be time for yet another redesign. Upon reaching Crafting Mike, we learn about the base feature that we truly want, delivery cannons. When resources are delivered to a cannon through a conveyor belt, they are automatically fired off and sold. But unique to player bases are these refineries, which take in raw resources and process them so they can be sold at a higher price. While we get to keep this base, it doesn't do us any good to keep it here. So just like with the turret, we can hold right click on it and send it to inventory. With our quest complete, it's time to see what new missions we have. Crafty Business 2 will likely be more base parts. If we can just send that base to our inventory, it'll be easy enough. And while it's a distance away, Charlie Watchtower will be our main mission. Though to be safe, I think we dump some of these extra parts off. But I think we keep the laser up front. While nearing our destination, I found an interesting combat encounter. 2 medium-sized techs similar to our own size, and they just so happen to be distracted by each other. It seems that the lasers are still our most effective weapon. And while I'm out of power, it seems the other tech has already had its weapons disabled. Now that's a lot of blocks. And while I probably don't need them, I believe the phrase is, if it's free, it's for me. Coming up on Crafty Business 2, we get introduced to storage silos, which hold resources, and fabricators, which craft blocks from resources. For now, we'll send it to storage. While traveling in the dunes towards the watchtower, it appears we've come across some sort of mesa biome. When building our own base, it's ideal to build on flat terrain. Depending on how flat the tops of these mesas are, it might be just what we're looking for. Though it seems we're a bit too long from our spoils of the previous battles to face this uphill battle. So we'll do a cheeky little build mode adjustment and put off the core problem until later. And while it appears the enemy's stuck, it seems like only the mortars have the range, while the lasers are hitting the rocks that the enemy tech is stuck on. Though it appears that the hills seem to be blocking the enemy's lasers. After several seconds of melting each other, the enemy tech actually frees himself. And since I can't turn much without sliding down the hill now, once again those random back miniguns save the day. Luckily the shields lasted until the end, so I don't think I lost anything. I think it's time to check out this mesa for ourselves, and it appears I should have went backwards from the beginning. Let me just get to a nice viewing point. It's not bad up here. I'm curious how flat the next mesa is. Is that a trading station? And there's several flat sections up here. So while we're here, it seems like a good time to sell the resources that I randomly picked up. And while looking at this shop, I see that they have an anchored AI module, which would allow us to construct our own autonomous turrets, like that one from the quest, however long ago that was. We'll also be purchasing some base supplies, so we'll have it when we need it. Though I probably should have thought about how I still have to move them individually before I bought them. And now is when I remember the reforming tech. I just need to also remember that I can do this out in the field. But now that we have better blocks, I don't think this basic design is going to cut it. But before I begin constructing again, let's cover a special feature of TerraTech. If I were to bring out another cab, it will be given its own name as a new tech. And if you'll excuse me by bringing this cab out of the garbage, now that we have a second active tech, if I were to double click on it, I switch over control to it, meaning if we were to make multiple vehicles at one time, we can freely swap between them, assuming we're in viewing distance. But right now, we only have one vehicle, so I think it's time to make something suited to the desert. There we go. Still have a bit of that mini truck influence, but having the 6 wheels in this configuration allows us to corner quite easily. We also have our volley of lasers and mortars in the front, and our machine guns in the back. But before I continue, it appears another TerraTech feature has come into play. Simply put, invasions are when extra strong techs come to your world. They're usually larger in size, and may even have pieces that we haven't unlocked yet. So we'll quick save our tech, and call it the Dune Runner. So even if we lose pieces, we can rebuild this later. Now back to invasions. Supposedly the tech designs are player-made, but they're not actually controlled by players. As you can see, I can pause the game, and the countdown doesn't continue. Invasions also create a zone of influence, in which they only attack you if you enter that red zone, which is visible on the minimap. Technically we get 10 seconds to leave, but we're just gonna go for it. Oh, he's got stronger shields than we do. We might need to back off. I guess the shield was all that tech had going for it. But did you see how much more experience we got here compared to the regular techs? And while we took some damage, like our drill and our mortars, the amount of new items we got seemed like a good trade-off, such as this mega resource collector from a higher geocorp mining license, including new weapons from a license we don't even have. If it were to break, we couldn't replace it, but it makes for a nice boost in power as long as we have it. With the cleanup done and the repair complete, you can see that we can't reform our just saved design, because we don't have any extra mortar or laser drill weapons to serve as replacements for the ones that we lost. So if we wanted to use this exact design, we'd have to either purchase or loot weapons and put them in our inventory, meaning we'll have to do a manual repair. With that, it looks like our firepower is restored, and you can definitely tell that newly looted machine gun is there. While we might have issues with that SMG, I'm just going to save it again for reforming later, which should make it easy enough to adding loot to our inventory in the field. And while I think it's finally time to tackle the watchtower, I am going to add a waypoint here for later, as it might make for a good base location. Here's something we haven't seen yet. These glinting rocks show that there's different kinds of resources in them. While the grayish-white streaks usually mean some sort of ore, the glinting usually refers to gems, which sell for higher than the ores, but that won't matter until we get a base. We are finally reaching the quest marker. The only problem is that this tells us to go to yet another location. So back on the road we go. So that strange spear is apparently the watchtower. Let's just approach it nice and carefully. See what we're dealing with. Alright, so it seems like this ramp is its range. Though the weapons seem to shoot even shorter. Yeah, we seem to be good. So apparently we gotta deal with these two chargers before we can get to the main tower. We'll see if we can outrange them. Yeah, it turns out I can't. It seems like my lasers are despawning before they're actually hitting the target, because it goes down quite easy when I get close enough. There we are. Seems like we have to destroy the anchor block. But with one charger down, that means there's one to go. After we do our good deed of picking up the trash, of course. It's perfectly good and free trash after all. With the second charger as an example, both of our lasers have the exact same range, and we can see this charger's lasers despawning before they reach me. With my shields down and my weapons on the front, I don't necessarily want to go full bore. But now that it's finally turning daytime, I can anchor down and get my solar panels up and start recharging my batteries. Based on the last charger, I should only need a few seconds of battery, but I may as well prepare the damage I've taken while I'm at it. Looks like we're topped off and ready to go. Oof, those mortar shells are actually hitting quite a bit. While I've only got the one shield on the front, likely the repair bubbles seem to be doing their job. Well, would you look at that? The next time we're at a trading station, we'll have to see if any of these blocks are available. And that sounds like the reward crate for leveling up. Where'd it go? Oh, down there, huh? Well, we'll get it after we deal with the tower. The crate shouldn't despawn until it's opened. And it seems once again, our greed has caught up. Let's just do one of these. And there we go. problem for another day. Actually, it might just get worse. I don't got a problem. You got the problem. Anywho, let's get this tower out of the way. Ugh, that's a lot of mortars. On second thought, better safe than sorry. Just throw on a few extra shields and batteries for safety. And away we go. If we do enough damage to the center, hopefully we can disable those motors. There we are. So now I just need to destroy the anchors without destroying too many of the pieces. It'd be nice to salvage what we can out of this after all. So that must have been the core. And while I'll take that delivery crate, I think we still need to destroy the anchors. Very carefully. One chunk to go. That it? Good. Here comes my favorite part. So now that we've thoroughly made our vehicle incapable of moving, all we need to do now is swap back to our previous tech. All those extra items are now in our inventory, and we have a vehicle that we can drive again. You're probably wondering why I didn't just do this sooner. And that's a good question. Now, we did go back for that first delivery crate, and landed a killer jump. I quick threw on all these items, and did another quick swap. And if you aren't sure that it works, this new jackhammer that I got from the supply crate is now in our inventory. I think it's time that we find a trading station. This one's in the salt flats by the looks of it. Now here's a good example of our firepower to the small fries at the beginning of the episode. Pulverized with not a scratch, though our bullets seem too slow to hit anything at range. Looks like we finally have some geocore missions, though at this point, just grab them all. But since we're here, I also decided to buy some refineries, since we have a location in mind for setting up a base. And since it was nearby, I thought I'd quick do the crafty business to unlock any new base blocks. What we got was the filter block, allowing you to filter resources on conveyor belts, and the generator, allowing us to make power at nighttime. Which are pieces I'll gladly add to my inventory. Though as I was about to leave, we got another visitor. The last one went well enough, so we may as well take this one on too. But this time we'll make use of our 10 seconds and get a bit closer. Try and maximize our damage. Okay, this time, with the flat ground, we're going to try and kite him in a circular fashion to minimize how much damage we take. Let's do one final burst. There we are. I'm curious about this invading other people thing, but we'll save that for another time. Looks like we got a new weapon from this invader. Seems to be in the same style of that other machine gun, but its bullets seem to have quite the range and fast moving speed. And now that we've given the loot a good old inventory swap, I think it's a good place to call this first episode. Thank you for watching Epic Games Slop Corner, and I hope to catch you in the next one.